Finance Committee is being conducted via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder, persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 508-945-4410. Again, 508-945-4410 and enter conference ID 550-578-572 #, 550-578-572 #. Or one may join the meeting via online Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. Despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide for real-time access, and we will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible in accordance with town policy. The public can speak to any issue or business item on the agenda during the meeting when recognized by me, the chair. And with that, call to order. John Papalardo, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Thank you. Tommy Doan,
Yes.
John Whalen,
Here.
Andy Young,
Here.
Joanne,
Here.
Barb,
Here.
and the chair is present. So we have a quorum. We're going to continue our FY23 article review today. Handful of things on our agenda, one or two of which we may not get to because there is yet to be formal action taken on them by the select board. But Alice, you want to start us off with just an update at least on the fisherman's storage area, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, the fisherman's storage area, the select board has placed it on the warrant. However, there is not an amount at this time, so we're still trying to get those figures in. The original amount requested had been $200,000, but again, we didn't have definitive numbers, so the select board asked to defer that. They will be hearing that, I believe, next Monday, or I'm sorry, next Tuesday, the 10th, at their meeting, as well as we expect to bring forward an agenda item for the Collins Center classification and compensation plan. Again, that will be for the select board's meeting of May 10th.
Okay, so we may need a brief follow-on meeting to look after these things following the select board's action. Alex, just for the benefit of the committee and anybody who may be listening, can you just provide us a little 5,000-foot overview of what in fact is going on with the fisherman's storage area and its prospective relocation?
Yes, the fisherman's storage area currently is at the on land by the airport. It's to the north of the airport, and that is per the FAA. That is incompatible use with the airport. The fisherman's storage area does attract a lot of wildlife, which may disrupt planes taking off or landing. So the intent is to move the fisherman's storage area from the site at the airport over to a site by the wastewater treatment plant off of Middle Road. So again, we're still trying to get the definitive costs for having that site there, and then what we need to do to prepare that site to move these items.
That's helpful, thank you. So no action today for the Finance Committee. Any questions from committee members and of Alex with respect to the fisherman's storage area? All right, not seeing any hands. Why don't we then move on, please, to, we have a citizen's petition regarding the land acquisition at 776 Main Street and 70 Depot Road. I believe that was put forward by Mr. Peter Farber.
Yes.
Yes.
I see a PF in my footer.
Yep.
Mr.
Yes,
Farber, you with
Mr.
us?
Farber is here, so I will just give a brief introduction of the article and then let Mr. Farber speak to the article as it is his petition.
Terrific.
So again, this is the citizens petition to take purchase land acquisition 776 Main Street and 70 Depot Road. As you might recall, that's the Monomoy Theater, the previous Monomoy Theater land. The select board did take a vote on this, and they voted, I believe, not to approve this by a vote of 0 in favor, 5 opposed, or a vote to approve it, 0 in favor, 5 opposed. Let me just double check that. But they did, I did provide the minutes from the select board's meeting for your review, but Mr. Farber is here to discuss his citizen petition. So I will turn it over to Mr. Farber.
All right.
Welcome, Mr. Farber.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And can everybody hear me?
Perfectly.
And-
At least the chair can.
Should I begin?
Yes, please.
Yes.
All right. So first of all, I want to say how important I consider this presentation today. And although I'm not a betting individual, I would willingly bet that if your board approves this article, the town meeting will pass it overwhelmingly. I really mean that. And that, of course, despite the selectmen's non-approval. So I'm going to go through the reasons why your board should support this article. I first want to, I think each and every one of you know where the land is. It's the Monomoy Theater property. It's about 3.69 acres and extends from Main Street across from Chatham Ford and right across to Depot Road. It's bordered on the east by Veterans Field, at least in the rear. There's a commercial property or two on the southeast. In the vicinity, across the street, there are the community tennis courts, the elementary school, the fire and rescue station. Of course, it's very near the community center. It's what I would call the center of town, very much in the center of town. It's been used for, decades as a summer theater. And I think that's what most of us know the property as. The last 3 years, I believe, since September of 2019, it's been owned by an LLC from outside of Boston. I think it's Gregory Clark is the name of the manager. So I'm going to start with the Veterans Field. It was purchased in April 1925 by virtue of 3 votes, or it was one of 3 parcels approved by the town at the April annual town meeting. There was a very distinct reason for the purchase. And I quote, "To establish an athletic field, public playground, or recreation center for the use of the pupils of the schools and of the citizens of the town of Chatham." End quote. There is no clear reason at this time that I can give you for the town to purchase this property. In the petitioned article, I list several what I consider very proper public purposes, but if the town does vote this, that would be for others in the future to decide. But clearly, once the town owns the property, the uses will be determined by the town and not some private developer for whatever his profit reasons might be. Will the use of the town be restricted to summer theater? Of course not. The parcel of land is certainly available for the encouragement and advancements of the arts, visual and performing, but it's also, there would be 2 old buildings, historic buildings that would be preserved. It would be available as a park for both active and passive recreation. Are these important values? I would say absolutely, especially at the location where this land is located. Are these of lasting values? I mean, everybody uses phones these days, computers. But you go into Boston, as we all know, you go into any city in Europe, you go to New York, the parks play a very, very vital role. The public garden in Boston is absolutely a beautiful place. And as we all know, walking through there, you see people of all ages enjoying the park. So all of that comes with the purchase of this property. And it's there, the town's forever and ever. That is so important, because then you move on to the next question. Is it worth it to purchase? Are these lasting values? Again, yes, indeed they are. And they'll be just as important for our great, great, great grandchildren as they are today. The timing is right. The current owner has owned the property since September of 2019. They recently went to the planning board last December, and obtained approval for a 5-lot subdivision. The Monomoy Theater building and the house that fronts on Main Street are on Lot 1. The remaining 4 lots are access off of Depot Road. There's a little cul-de-sac, and the 4 lots are around the cul-de-sac. One of those lots just went. Now, first of all, you have to understand the planning board had to approve this plan under very established law. When a subdivision plan meets all of the rules and regulations of the planning board, the board has no discretion but to sign the plan. However, that is only one step in the process. This land is located in a general business district. Construction of residences is not permitted as of right. And it's been that way back into the 70s, as far as I can tell, if not earlier. So a special permit is required for any of those 4 lots to be used as a site of a single family residence. So the zoning board heard the first application last Thursday. The board voted 5-0 against the proposal, and it allowed the applicant to withdraw it. The vote was actually 8-0, but 3 of the members, of course, are alternates, so only 5 of the votes counted. That it gives you some indication of what at least those people think of residential development at this place in town. So the timing is right. Since 2019, this was the first proposal or part of the proposal for whatever this particular owner wants to do with the property. Nothing really substantial has been mentioned relative to the plans for Monomoy Theater, although someone informed me that a proposal or some kind of plan went before the HBDC last month for a much different building than what's there now. The Monomoy Theater, I would suggest, is worthy of saving. Of course, it will require money, as any building does, to maintain it, but it's something this town can handle. This is, as you all know, a very wealthy town. We have an amazing tax base, and every time a penny is spent, it's spread over that entire tax base. So a person like me, I might have a $500,000 property, but if I drive down Shore Road, those people are paying way more towards the support of anything that we do on that property. And it will be that way forever and ever. So again, purchase the property now because there's been no serious substantial development, just one proposal that has failed flat out. How does that figure into the cost? This property, the combined properties of the one on 760 Main Street and the Depot Road property, the combined value assessment is $2.5 million. Now, we all know it doesn't take much to open the paper and see what property values are throughout Chatham and the fact that they've gone up substantially. But those are residential properties. This property, I would suggest, because it's in a general business district, is not affected by that rise in the values of residential properties. And I don't believe that the assessors are off in their valuation. They may be right on target. Now, the current owner paid $3.6 million, roughly 1.1 million over the assessed value. That was his decision to make. That doesn't mean that it was the right decision. Maybe he had hopes and aspirations that will never be fulfilled. But why take the chance? The timing is now. Nothing has been approved for the property other than, I think, the demolition of 2 outbuildings. How does that figure into what the town will pay? If the current owner does not wish to sell, and I expect that to be the case, then the town would vote, or to authorize, part of the vote would be to authorize the selectmen to take by eminent domain. To some people, that has a bad ring to it. However, it's established in both the federal and state constitutions. It's been around, we inherited from England. It's recognized as a proper purpose. And why? Because when the 2/3 of the townspeople or city, state, federal government, whatever the legislative body decides that the best use for this property is as public property, that is recognized as perfectly legitimate. So the counterbalance to that is the town has to pay just compensation, which in the court decisions is fair market value. So again, we would start with the 2.5 million. I'm sure the owner would make an argument before the court that he paid 3.6 for it, therefore it should have this increased value, but the burden is on him to show that his value is the correct value. The town lost back in 1993 when the town took the CBI golf course. I've read the case, I've read the appellate decision, and the town made a big mistake. It was a golf course. It was not a subdivision. It was a single parcel of land. The town, however, allowed the developer or the owner to come in with a subdivision plan, or I should say a conceptual plan. Nothing had been submitted to the planning board. Nothing had been approved. 10 months earlier, the town submitted its own conceptual plan. So the jury had two plans, and the question was, well, how much are the lots worth when they're built? How much for putting the roads in, the utilities? And in that discussion, the town lost. The pro tanto of 5 million roughly, it was about half what the jury found. None of that evidence should have come in. There was no plan. And 10 months earlier, the highest court in Massachusetts had come down with a case called Algonquin Gas. In that case, the SJC made it very clear that unless there was substantial proof of what could be done with this property, then that was incompetent evidence. It never should have come in. And in fact, after the town allowed it in, didn't even object to it, and the jury came back with a finding against the town sought to have the judge strike that evidence after the fact. And you can guess what happened to that. All this is in the appeals court decision. I'm not making any of this up. It was clearly a botched job, but we wouldn't make that mistake again. All right. First of all, we have the assessors. I'm sure their methodology is solid. And then we would have one or two appraisers who would tell what this property is worth on the date of the taking, not somebody's song and dance of what might happen there. So we'll have the property forever. We can afford it because when you take 2.5 million or 3.5 million, whatever the appraised value is at the time of the taking, it's shared across everybody in town. If I have a $500,000 home, I will pay roughly $300 to $400 if the whole taking is paid for in 1 year. That, I would say, is minimal when the property will be owned by the town forever and ever. So those are my thoughts. I would hope that the board, if you have any questions, will ask them. And as I said, I really do think this vote is important. I think the town will follow your guidance as to whether this is a good purchase at this time. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Farber. Questions then for either Alex or Mr. Farber from members of the committee, please. All right, seeing no hands, intriguingly. So I guess from my perspective, it's a very interesting idea. I'm clearly not a zoning attorney, nor an attorney of any kind. But I guess as I've been thinking about this, I wrestle a little bit with the notion of property rights, Mr. Farber, and I guess I wonder if the current owner doesn't deserve another trip to the plate at the ZBA to determine if it's a housing solution or if it's a commercial solution that he ultimately proposes, and if anything gets accepted there, before I think I'd be prepared to go down the path of the taking by eminent domain. John Whalen, I see your hands up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Farber, would it be common for the present owner to claim that the money he has spent on developing plans and doing different other things, is it reasonable to anticipate that he will expect that on top of the 3.6 million?
Well, it's certainly not in the law. None of that comes into play. First of all, the developer could have wasted his money. All right. But the fact is, there's only one criteria that the law requires. What is the value? What is just compensation on the day of the taking? That's it. And the jury will decide that based on the competent evidence before it. Do I think that Patrick Costello can adequately represent the town in an eminent domain case in Barnstable Superior Court? Absolutely. No question about it. Would he hire good, competent appraisers? Absolutely. I mean, this is no, rocket scientist. It's not advanced, some kind of mathematics. It's just looking at comparable sales, looking at what has sold in the commercial area in Chatham in the recent time period, putting a value. What one might do with it at some point in the future, what money one has spent, possibly thrown away up to this point, doesn't get into the calculus, not one bit.
Mr. Farber, do you happen to know, I know that in speaking with the assessor that it's anticipated that the assessed values are going to be going up, residential assessed values are going to be going up somewhere between 30 and 40% in the next reval. Do we know if the 2.5 figure you cite has already been revalued, or is that kind of more of a historic number?
Okay, my information is coming off the assessor's website. Everything that's printed says fiscal year 2022. Alex can correct me. I believe that's the fiscal year that ends on June 30th of 2022.
That's correct.
The figures would be based on January 1, 2021, Alex, I think.
Very good.
Okay, so when the new values come out, all right, they would be based on the value as of January 1st, 2022. And we take a snapshot of those values. This project, it did have an approved subdivision plan. The plan was signed in December. However, that plan, as we'd all learned last Thursday, you could say is not worth the paper it's printed on unless the zoning board approves. And that requires a 4/5 vote. And I can tell you, I attended the hearing, I listened to every word. There were very, very sound reasons for the board to deny that application.
And Alex, are we still running at roughly $85,000 for a penny on the tax rate?
Yes.
So a $3.5 million purchase would be in the neighborhood of 41 cents incremental to the tax rate.
Yep.
Joanne, I see your hands up.
You're muted,
Joanne?
Joanne. Joanne, you're muted.
There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The
Thank you.
town did have a chance to purchase this property along with everyone else when it came on the market. It has now been purchased and it belongs to a buyer. There would have to be a really overreaching need from my point of view for the town for me to be interested in taking this land by eminent domain or for purchasing it at this point. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Joanne. Looks like you have your connection resolved. Nice to see you. Barbara, I think your hand is up as well, please.
Actually, I lowered my hand, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I changed my mind.
Okay. So Alex, were the town to go down this path and contemplate a $3.5 million purchase price, how would one anticipate financing something like that. In a very back of the
Yeah.
envelope way. But
Well, again, there's in the petition article, it does ask the select board, I think, to apply for funds, grants, gifts, loans, others. But again, we don't have an appropriation for this. We don't know the amount. At $3.5 million, usually something of that magnitude, we usually borrow for that. And that requires a 2/3 majority, which is what this petition article requires, as it is land acquisition as well.
so we'd probably have two articles of town, probably at 2 different town meetings, one to take it by eminent domain, second to authorize the bonding, or maybe you.
Yeah, if it was to be bonded, because that's not contemplated, I don't think in this, looking at the article, it doesn't seem that it says, oh, it does say borrow a sum of money. However, I'm not sure if that, I'm just looking for my minutes here. Because I thought I had something from Pat Costello on this. Hold on just a minute, please. Pull up my agenda packet here.
Sure, no, that's fine, thank you.
Or if I see Mr. Nicastro's on here, I'm not sure if he recalls from when this discussion was at the select board. So bear with me while I look for my, thank you.
Very good, thanks.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I don't recall any conversation about the borrowing possibility at the select board discussion, but that's my memory of it. I know that typically when there is as Alex can attest, when there is an article for borrowing, there is a lot of boilerplate language that is contained in it that's not in this article. This article simply authorizes the select board to acquire the property either by acquisition or gift or eminent domain, and presumably the details, if the select board were to decide to go in that direction, would have to be worked out, and I would assume there would be an appropriately tailored drafted borrowing article that would be submitted to town meeting, and perhaps even a second article, Alex, on acquisition. I'm not sure.
You're muted, Alex.
Maybe not. You're muted. Maybe not. Maybe this would suffice to authorize the select board to do it.
Yeah, I know that usually with a borrowing article, there's language, as you said, regarding the treasurer is authorized to issue bonds.
Yeah. There's a lot of magic language that goes into that article, and that would be subsequent if this were to be adopted at the upcoming annual town meeting and the select board then decided to go ahead with it, then there would be a second article for the funding that would come forward to town meeting.
Yes, alternatively, if we could, I'd have to look at the amount of excess levy capacity, because if we have enough excess levy capacity, this could be put right directly on the tax rate.
Okay.
Or a capital exclusion if it's not a debt exclusion.
All right, that's helpful, Alex. Mr. Farber, I see your hands up, please.
Yes, during that discussion, it occurred to me that I had not mentioned that back in 2019, when this property was on the market, a group of Chatham residents who have had long association with the Monomoy Theater did raise money. And my understanding, and I've spoken to one of them, they raised they had commitments for $3.5 million. But the Stendler family, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, accepted the competing offer for 3.6. So there was only $100,000 off. But that just shows you what I mentioned in the article, the possibility of gifts. And I think that's a very real possibility. If this were to pass at town meeting in the form it's in, I think there would be a substantial fundraising, and that very likely the town would not have to borrow that anywhere near the full amount.
Thank you, Mr. Farber. I guess question for you, Mr. Farber, or perhaps Alex or Dean, is there any evidence, or do we know if the town or any representatives of private parties have spoken with the managing member of the LLC to inquire if a sale is a prospective alternative?
I'm certainly not aware of any official contact with Mr. Clark. I haven't myself had any communication with him other than way back when he was presenting to the planning board on his original proposal. Other than when he had an article, a petition article for a special town meeting. God, it seems ages ago, but it was a year or so ago, and he came before the board with his petition, and we had conversation in that venue. But there certainly has been no communication that has been directed by the select board. I'm not trying to be cute with my parsing. I'm just not aware of anything. Really.
No, understood. I appreciate that.
I know that I am aware of the fact that there have, well, I don't want to put anyone in, this has nothing to do with the town possibly acquiring it, but I think the principal is familiar with or acquainted with at least one town official, but to my knowledge, there's been no discussion about the town possibly acquiring it. My understanding is that the property is not necessarily for sale. Certainly have no information that it's for sale.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. Mr. Farber, your hands up, please.
No, I meant to put it down. I pushed the wrong button, I think.
All right.
Yeah.
Alex,
Just as Dean said, I have no knowledge of any town officials also. So again, I know nothing about this.
Okay, thank you. Barbara?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Farber, if the town did opt to take the property by eminent domain and the current owner sued the town, do you or does anyone on this call have any idea what the financial liability of the town would be defending that suit regardless of who wins it?
Do you mean the attorney's fees and costs,
Yes.
Ms. Madison? No,
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that Mr. Costello would hire two top-ranked appraisers in the commercial field, and experts do get paid well if they truly are experts, and they should. But the cost of the suit is not going to be that great. It really is not. Certainly nothing anywhere near the magnitude, at least in my view, of the opportunity here. It pales in comparison, in my view.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Barbara. Dean, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to Barbara's question. Some of you may know I used to be an assistant attorney general in the eminent domain division of the attorney general's office. That was a number of years ago, and they've actually changed the judicial process for it. There used to be a two trial system. So I've tried eminent domain cases. I also handled eminent domain when I was city solicitor for the city of Quincy. So typically, the way these things work, as Peter has articulated, the taking authority, in this case it would be the town, would offer to acquire what's called a pro tanto, which is the term Peter used. A pro tanto, it's an amount of money which the town determines based on its own internal appraisal or appraisals, is the fair market value of the property. And that fair market value is determined according to a process depending on the type of property involved. There are three methods for appraisal. One is called, and the most common is comparable sales. You look at other sales of reasonably comparable property within a reasonable time, associated with the time of taking, and you come to a conclusion. There are two other approaches depending upon whether it's rental property or whether it's a unique design and purpose, like an amusement park, for example. So then the owner of the property takes the pro tanto, and if he or she is satisfied with it, that's the end of it. If not, the owner has the right to seek fair compensation, just compensation, and by filing a case in the Superior Court. The owner would typically hire an appraiser of his or her own, and the trial would be before a jury, and the two sides would put their appraisers forward for examination and cross-examination, and the jury would deliberate. Very often, there is a settlement before it even gets to the ultimate trial, as there often is in the legal system. The legal costs, the appraiser's costs, and the town's appraiser's costs, and the town's legal fees, the lawyer's fees, would be, paid by the town. Typically the taking authority's attorney is billing by the hour. And the appraiser would be billing by the hour. On the other side, it's usually a recovery, a percentage of the recovery if they're successful. So if the town offered $3.5 million, that's the pro tanto, and the plaintiff was successful in getting a jury verdict of $5 million, the town would be responsible to pay the additional $1.5 million plus interest. And Peter, I don't remember what the interest rate is currently. It used to be like 8% in my day, but there would be interest back to the date of taking. Sometimes that can really kill you, and I think that was the case. And part of the issue, I think, with the land taking on the golf course. I'm sorry for that long explanation, but I thought I would put that information.
No, I think that's very helpful, Dean. Certainly for me. And
Peter can correct me if I've missed anything or got anything incorrect.
Yes. Well, first of all, it's 10% is the interest rate. And Mr. Nicastro, you're absolutely right. The biggest hurt, shall we say, was that during that appellate period, we were faced with we were looking at down the barrel of over a $4 million verdict. And in the next 2 years, that went up quite substantially. So when the appellate court ruled, it was a very tough medicine to take. So, but it's 10%.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tommy Doan, your hands up, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My problem is that the purchase of the site is not the end of it, because we're going to have to maintain it and then decide what we're going to do with it. And that's going to cost the town more money. That's my concern.
All right. Further questions for Mr. Farber or Alex? If not, I will take a motion to support Article 55, the citizens petitioned article land acquisition at 776 Main Street and 0 Depot Road.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Barbara. And okay, to support the proposed article, John Papalardo,
No.
Tommy Doan,
No.
Hello?
John, was that you? Daughter's in the maternity ward. Joanne,
No.
Barbara,
No.
and I will vote no. I appreciate the idea, but I think it's respecting the rights of property holders. It's a bit too early for me to try to think about going down this path. So I'm sorry, Mr. Farber, but that's where we are.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate your participation. Thank you. So Alex, then back to you. Citizens petition tent camping. I think if you recall our conversation, that has been referred back to the planning board. So no action required by us at this point in time.
Yes, as far as I know, it's been referred back to the planning board, and that was from the select board viewed this on April 26th. So the planning board, and I'm reading from the minutes from the select board. So it says, select board member Nick Castro read an email from Ali Sabatino, town planner, regarding the planning board's decision not to recommend the article to town meeting. At the planning board's April 25th, 2022 meeting, the planning board held the required Mass General Law public hearing for the proposed citizens petition zoning bylaw amendment. The board voted unanimously not to recommend the proposed article to town meeting. The board did express that they are very supportive of the intent of the bylaw. However, they felt that the bylaw, as currently proposed, is too broad with the allowance of general tent camping on all municipal conservation land with not enough safeguards in place. The members recommend that town council and staff review and find an alternative way to allow tent camping by the Scouts on an area west of Goose Pond. So it was suggested that Mr. Eldridge work out the changes and bring it back before the board during their May 10th meeting for a recommendation.
All right, do we know if Mr. Eldridge still anticipates presenting Article 60 to town meeting?
I do not know that.
Okay, so we'll just have to keep an eye on that, but I guess no action required.
Mr. Chairman, it's Dean. I think he does. I mean, that was certainly the impression that we were left with at the select board meeting last week. He said he would reach out to town council and try to come up with revised language for his motion.
All right, that's helpful. Thank you. So at least we know to keep that, Alex, on our collective radar. Barbara,
Yes.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alex, I was just wondering, are the Scouts the only ones who are interested in tent camping? Are there other people, or is it basically just the Scouts?
I believe this was generated because the Scouts used to have tent camping allowed in that area. So they used to go there prior to the conservation restriction on that area. Or again, I'd have to look at the petition article. So I think it is just looking for the Scouts to have tent camping in the area, not just general public camping.
And do you have any idea, talking about the permanent bathroom facilities, what they might have meant by that? Or no, not yet.
Not yet. I do not know that.
Okay. Thanks, Alex. Sorry.
Thank you, Barbara. Okay, if there are no further questions then on standing down on tent camping, Alex, collective bargaining agreements, any action required there?
We have nothing on the collective bargaining agreements yet. I had put that on the agenda as a placeholder. As I said earlier in the meeting, we expect to bring the item number E, the Collins Center Classification and Compensation Plan, before the select board on Tuesday, May 10th.
Okay. So the deferral of several items then in that regard for what will appear to be another meeting for us. In which instance, I'm going to dodge the mute button here, apologies. We will move on to agenda item 4, which is the Chatham Upper Air Station. I will present a little overview of that. I see that Huntley Harrison, the chairman of the Airport Commission, is on, as well as Mike Ryder, I believe, is still on. And Mr. Ryder who works in the Harbor Master's office, has served as an upper air observer for a dozen years, and I think can contribute to the conversation as well. I hope everyone's had a chance to look at the brief that was provided in the agenda. In essence, the idea is to see if a joint letter from the Finance Committee and the Airport Commission can't trigger some formal action by the select board and or town manager with respect to reaching out to the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration to formally express the town's interest in retaining the Chatham Upper Air Station and its employees here in town. Everyone may recall that I think it was close to last October, the station was formally closed due to erosion up at Morris Island. There are 3 positions of upper air observers associated with that facility. I have sent 4 or 5 different correspondences with the select board and town manager, just as a private citizen, encouraging them to do something formally to try to keep this presence here for a variety of reasons, which are outlined in the brief. And was pleased to learn that Chairman Harrison of the Airport Commission was similarly working to try to retain the presence of the upper air station. So the purpose of this really is to authorize the chairman of the Finance Committee and the chairman of the Airport Commission to draft a joint letter from the two committees to the select board and town manager, to encourage them to engage formally in this process. So Huntley, is there anything you'd like to add to that, or Mike?
Yes, as you all probably know, we are trying to clean out the fisherman's storage area. And earlier in the conversation, you found out from Alex about the relocation to the wastewater area of the fisherman's storage area over there. What we're looking to do is to repurpose that area so that it is no longer a hazard to aircraft landing or departing from Chatham. And we have lots of options on the table for that. It could be solar, it could be the upper air balloon station, and so on. But it at least would be a non-aeronautical use of that area that the FAA could approve. We don't know yet. I have reached out to the FAA, and I've also reached out to the National Weather Service and NOAA. And the FAA has not gotten back to me yet. The gentleman's on vacation this week, as luck would have it. And the gentleman from NOAA is actually interested in coming for a site visit within the next couple of weeks. I just got an email from him this morning indicating that he would be interested in taking a look at the area. I sent him an email with some photographs of the area, and he seemed to be, I didn't send the same item that you all have in the brief that was supplied by the chairman, but I sent him some other photographs that just gave an aerial of the total area and also of the fisherman storage area within it. And he seemed interested. So there is some movement there. Again, I think the final arbiter in this whole thing will be the FAA with regard to having a launch site inside the approach area for the airport. But you never know. If it's NOTAM'd appropriately, in other words, notice to airmen that the balloon launch would take place twice a day and at the given time, that could be a notice to airmen that they should be alert to that those two times. But again, I mentioned in my email to the FAA that the balloon is basically in the approach zone less than a minute, probably less than 30 seconds before it gets to 1,500 feet or above. And 1,500 feet above ground is the approach pattern for the larger aircraft. So, unless they want to be real sticklers about it, I don't think that would be an impediment. But you never know with the FAA what they're going to say or do on something. So I'm waiting for that. I'm also waiting for the possible site visit by the gentleman from NOAA. So that's my update. I think it's to be a good thing. We will have, the area will be gated. In fact, the gate is being installed as we speak. And so it'll be protected back there. It won't be just open space for anyone to wander through. And I'm also looking to fence in the entire property with some of the money we have received from the I'll get this right, bilateral infrastructure legislation. I think that's the name of it. And so there's no cost to the town. It's all money coming from the government. And I think it would be put to good use by fencing in that area. And we have the gate, and the fisherman storage area will be relocated over to the wastewater treatment facility.
Thank you, Huntley. I would just add to your comments that of the 92 stations, upper air stations operated by NOAA in North America and the Pacific, I think there's 12 maybe 14 that are embedded at airports, commercial airports, municipal airports in the United States. Mike Ryder, if you're on, could I just have you hop on and give us just a brief overview of what's involved in the activity in terms of kind of community impact and environmental impact, et cetera, of what takes place there?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me. As Stephen said, I worked for the National Weather Service as a subcontractor for 12 years. The station was officially closed the last day of March in 2021. I was there until that date. This station is very important for many different reasons. One, it's very important to the National Weather Service. As you'll see in the chairman's brief, is that when I started working here at the station, they explained to me that this was one of the most important stations on the East Coast because of the proximity to the Atlantic Ocean. It is one of the two most easternmost in the United States. The next closest one is in Albany, New York. There's one on Long Island, and there's one in Gray, Maine. So right now there's a big hole in the middle. I've spoken with National Weather Service in Norton, National Weather Service Boston, where most of the meteorologists are in this area, and they would love to get this station back. As far as the town, as Stephen mentioned, at one point there was actually 5 observers. Now, when we got done, there was only 3 of us. This is actually a tourist destination in the summertime. It's amazing the amount of people that come up to watch the balloon launches. To actually, I probably shouldn't say this, but on calm days, I let them take part in the balloon launch. Families would come back year after year after year. I can think of one family that I still remember their names. It's also, it's an educational process. If you came up and I was releasing the balloon, you would have questions for me. And I would say, I'd answer what I could, and I'd ask you to wait till I was done. And then I'd answer any question you have. And so I think it's a great educational experience for the benefit of the townspeople and for the tourists. It's, this is, as Stephen said, this is done in probably 12 different airports in the United States. I don't know if there's any small ones. I don't know how small they are, but this is not, if it was done at this location, it would not be the first time that it was done at an airport. That's all I have for the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just have a follow-up
you,
comment. I remember I said that there would be a gate across the path leading back to the fisherman's storage area. However, with regard to tourists or people interested, I know that that could work out, because if there are people there when the observer arrives and opens the gate, they could walk back there, observe, and then when the observer and observe the launch, and then when it's done, they just walk back out. We close the gate up, and we're fine. So I don't think it's going to be an area that's open where tourists will be driving down Wilford Road and wandering back into the storage area. Although the new gate is something you can climb over. It's just basically a vehicle gate. But I frankly don't think it'll be a problem.
But, and to be clear, Huntley, the fisherman storage area and any prospective balloon launching area is fenced off from the airport property, an area of operations already.
Yes.
Correct.
Right. It's already,
right.
Yeah, it's already separate.
Right.
Correct.
Okay. Any questions? I see Barbara, you've got your hand up, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also was interested to see that Logan Airport, it seems, would be very happy to see this come back. They're sort of excited about the Chatham location because of, as you pointed out, the feasibility of that, as Mike was talking about, filling in that gap there. Mike, I was wondering, I'm embarrassed that I've never watched a launch, but what do these balloons look like?
Great big.
Barbara, don't be embarrassed, because I'm going to be honest with you. I never saw a balloon launch until I started working there. Okay. All the years I've been on the water, I never saw a balloon leave that facility. This balloon is a latex balloon. It's approximately 5 to 6 feet in diameter once it's inflated. It's inflated with helium. It's inflated with enough helium to hopefully rise at about 5 meters per second. That's our goal. It's affected by wind, obviously, and things like that. As this balloon rises, it expands, and because of the lack of barometric pressure. By the time it gets to 100,000 feet and explodes, It's about 30 feet in diameter, but it's just a regular latex balloon. It has about 80 to 120 feet of string on it, a small parachute, and a little radio sound box. It's probably 6 by 9. It's made out of paper, a little bit of styrofoam, and a battery. So there's not a lot to it.
And I assume that we retrieve those when they come down.
I don't know how to say we. The National Weather Service says, Barbara, that 20% of these are returned every year. Only 20%. I assume that 99% of those are in the Midwest somewhere, because in 12 years I saw 2 of them come back. 99% of ours end up in the water to the east somewhere. In the wintertime, the upper level winds are 150 knots of wind, and so they all end up, actually to be higher than that. But they'll end up 100 to 150 miles offshore. Some of them do get retrieved, yes, but not all of them, I'm sure.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
John Whalen, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to support what Mike has said about that. I was one of the people who brought their children up to see the launch, actually before Mike was on duty, but years ago. And it was educational, it was interesting, and the children found it fascinating. So I support completely what he said, and I think it will be an attractive and appropriate thing for Chatham. Thank you.
Well, I will confess to riding my bicycle up to Morris Island in the early 70s and wandering into the building and helping from time to time they let me, after bothering them enough, let me launch a couple, at least hold the balloon and release it as a kid. That was quite fun. Mike, did you have some information regarding the prospects at Chatham? I think there was a conversation about Chatham versus other sites recently. Is there anything you can speak to on that?
Sure, Stephen. So again, unfortunately, this decision is going to be above National Weather Service Boston, which is actually in Norton. But conversations I've had with different meteorologists in Norton said to me that the rumor they have is that it's between Base Cape Cod and Chatham, if we could find a suitable location in Chatham. Unfortunately, they don't have much say in Norton. It's going to be decided by the property department of the National Weather Service where this goes, but they would put their influence behind us to try to get it back to Chatham. I guess it's been here since 1970. Some of those guys actually, Chatham used to be a full service weather station at one point, and they actually worked at Morris Island in this full service weather station before it became just a balloon launching site.
So all of which is to say, if it's going to be at an airport on Cape Cod, it might as well be our airport.
Absolutely.
No argument there.
All right. Further questions?
The airport needs some good news.
There you go. Further questions from the committee or anybody else on our call? Okay, then if not, I guess I would entertain a motion to delegate authority to the chair of the Finance Committee. Huntley's going to have to go through a similar process with the Airport Commission. But I'd like to ask the Finance Committee to delegate authority to the chair to work in conjunction with the chair of the Airport Commission in crafting a letter to the Select Board and the Town Manager, urging them to correspond with the National Weather Service. And I think Mike could probably help us in some points of contact there in terms of supporting Chatham as an ongoing location for the former Chatham Upper Air Station.
So moved.
Oh, lots of movement. Lots of seconds. All right. John Papalardo.
Absolutely.
Tommy Doan.
Yes.
John Whalen.
Yes.
Andy's off. Joanne Sprague.
Yes.
Barb Anderson.
Yes, sir.
And the chair's in favor. So we have a 0-6 and a 6-0. Terrific.
Thank you all.
Yeah, Huntley, thank you very much. Mike, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
And, more to
I
come.
think the airport commission will probably follow suit.
Good. I'll keep us
I'd be very
posted, and if
surprised
so,
if
then
they-
we can get to work.
Yep.
But appreciate the help of both you guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
So Alex, I think we have to have another meeting with at least a couple of tent camping, collective bargaining agreements, and Collins Center classification and fisherman storage area.
Yes.
Okay. So I guess a couple
Yeah.
things. I'm sorry, Dean, your hand is up.
Well,
Jump in.
I thought you were about to conclude. I was going to offer a comment. Maybe you made it at the beginning about the change in location of the annual town meeting. Maybe
I
you've
was
already-
just about to just about to do that.
Well, I'll let you do that then.
So there's two things now. We need to, I think, have another meeting. We've missed our posting time for Friday, so we're gonna have a short meeting next week. I will send an email out to everybody after talking to Alex about trying to settle on two alternatives. But hopefully we can dispense with these last remaining things. And I will defer to Dean as representative of the select board for their action last evening about town meeting location and date and time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So on Monday, the Board of Health met to get an update on COVID, and Dr. Duncanson presented some data indicating that at least over in the month of April, the infection rates have ticked upward somewhat significantly compared to March and compared to April of last year. And the subject of the planned indoor town meeting at the Monomoy Middle School was considered by the Board of Health, and they voted a unanimous recommendation that masks be worn. Last night, the select board, on an emergency basis, reconsidered the date and the location of the town meeting, and there was a long discussion. The information from Dr. Duncanson and the Board of Health was taken into account, and various members of the board, I know myself, had communications from members of the public expressing the desire that we do something different than hold it indoors, given especially our demographics. So the board last night determined that we would keep the original dates of May 14th and May 15th. That's Saturday and a Sunday, starting at 1 o'clock on the 14th, but that we would move the location of town meeting from the indoor site to the Veterans Field, as we have done previously. We understand that it's really a no-win situation, that it may be difficult for some folks to attend outside, just as it might have been uncomfortable for folks to participate inside. So on balance, we decided that this was the best approach, and accommodations will be made, just as we have done previously, to make it possible for those with limited mobility to be able to get to their seats. We'll have golf carts, and we have the one limitation that unfortunately will be impossible to overcome, at least in kind, is that we're not going to have a screen on which we can show plans or numbers. So that's something we're going to have to deal with. The town manager was asked specifically to come up with substitutes, I guess, in terms of handouts that would be available on some of these complicated articles. So that's the town moderator was involved in the conversation and offered his thoughts as well. The town election will take place as it was planned. That can't be changed on the 19th of May as well. So May 14th, 1 o'clock, Veterans Field. And if we need a second day, May 15th, Veterans Field. We're going to discuss next Tuesday and the options for a rain date. Right now, as of last night, the weather was predicted to be cloudy and in the 60s. Somewhat cloudy, partially cloudy. Who knows? That's quite a ways off right now. So happy to answer any questions.
All right. Any questions for Selectman Nacastro? Okay. So I think the last item of note is I have begun the process of assigning speaking roles to members of the committee for the town meeting. I have heard from several members of articles that they want to speak to, and a couple that they prefer not to speak to. Last call for members of the Finance Committee, if there's anything in particular. And I'm kind of accepting these offers on chronological order. So the first one in who says they want to speak to Article X gets it, in case there's a competition amongst articles. So I think that's probably it. Alex, anything further from your side of things?
Yes, thank you. I just, let me lower my hand here. Yeah, as Mr. Castro said, we're having the outdoor town meeting. The town manager and staff have recorded the annual town meeting warrant show, where a lot of information is available. We have department heads speaking to a lot of the articles, so we suggest that the public tune in to Channel 18 once that's available. Keep your eyes on Channel 18 for information, especially since we will not have any presentations and there are some hefty articles for discussion at town meeting. I'm also the town manager, myself, Katie Donovan, and Dr. Duncanson will be presenting to the Chatham Men's Club this Friday. So if anyone is a member of the Chatham Men's Club and wants to attend, we will also be making presentations there, and probably will have that available on the town's website as well. I'm just trying to get as much information out there as possible.
Terrific, thank you. And Barbara, your hands up, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dean, in terms of the rain date, if we're going to be voting on the 19th and it does happen to rain on either the 14th or the 15th, that it seems to me that it's going to have to be a night or, a day before the 19th, or would we be likely to change the date that you would vote?
It doesn't have to be before the 19th. We discussed that actually in the context of trying to decide whether to go outside at all. And the town manager had scoped out, this has not to do with this doesn't have to do with the rain date, but the town manager had scoped out some dates in June after the town election. And I raised the anomaly that you could have, if you had a town meeting that either commenced or didn't conclude until after the town election, then you would have a different select board composition up at the panel from the one that voted the warrant. The town, not that there's a legal objection to that, but it just seemed a little odd. But Mr. Litchfield pointed out that historically that has happened in Chatham many years ago, and that there are other towns that have their elections before the completion of their town meeting. With respect directly to the issue of the question of the rain date, there were some dates in June that were Saturday dates. One was the 11th and 12th. That's a weekend. I think there was one. I think that was the only one that was a weekend, and then there were some weekdays. The week of the 20th, and I think there was a week in May, the week of the 23rd of May. Those would probably have to be evening meetings if it was a weekday. And of course, we don't know, what the COVID situation is going to look like at that point. But because there was a slight indication in the graphs that Dr. Duncanson pointed out to the Board of Health, which I watched, that the curve is starting to bend a little downward. So we might have a different situation. But yes, it could be a week. It could be on the 11th and 12th. But there's a problem with that. The 12th is a problem for the Chatham Anglers, because Steve West was present last night, and they really need the 12th to set up. That's their opening night. So we'll try to work it out. We'll have some discussion on it next Tuesday at the Select Board. Hope that's helpful.
Thank you, Dean. I guess our last public service announcement for those who are watching or those who may watch, Alex, I think you can confirm my understanding that 549 Main Street remains closed and is likely to remain closed until at least Friday, perhaps Monday of next week. Is that correct? Or Dean?
Yeah, we expect to hear more later this afternoon. As you might be aware, 549 Main Street had, as well as the two buildings behind us, had a power surge. And therefore, the electricians are there and going through the building to ensure that everything is safe before the power is turned back on. We still have to assess the damages to any of the equipment, but that once the electricity is back on, we have heat and electricity. We can probably get back into the building. Town staff is working remotely, either from their homes, working from homes. I'm here at the annex along with several other people. Jill is at the DPW today. We have other people at the community center. We are picking up mail and stuff from 549 Main Street. Again, Jill expects to hear more from the electricians this afternoon, but it is likely that we will be closed for the remainder of this week. And again, working at different locations. We're all available by phone and or email.
All right, thank you, Alex. John Whalen, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alex, I'm trying to vote early or vote absentee because I'll be away on election day. Where would I go to find the town clerk?
The town clerk is currently at the community center in Dan Tobin's old office. So we don't have early voting this year. That was only due to COVID. So there's no longer available, but you can vote absentee. So yes, the community center.
Thank you.
Barbara, you are next.
Yes, that was my question too, Alex. So can we stop in there with an application that we've downloaded and pick up a ballot?
I believe so. I believe I don't know if she has them, but at least she will be able to take your application. And I think she was printing out absentee ballots today to send out.
Okay, thanks.
Dean, please.
Yes, I would like to take the opportunity to make a public service announcement.
We're the Finance Committee and Finance and Public Relations Committee. Dean,
Well,
over to you.
Since the Finance Committee was involved in the funding of this little project, and I've been involved with it, and Mr. Messina mentioned it last night at the board meeting. On the 30th of May, which is Memorial Day, following the traditional Memorial Day ceremonies, there will be a dedication of a monument to those who served Chatham in the Revolutionary War at Chase Park. And it will be, the plan is for an announcement to be made at the Memorial Day ceremonies at the conclusion, and that the reincarnation of Colonel Godfrey, appropriately attired, who typically operates the mill, but has acquired a tri-corner hat to substitute, will lead a small procession down from the community center to Chase Park, accompanied by a fife and drum and our familiar bagpiper, Sarah Marchio, and anyone that wants to walk. And there will be a short ceremony at Chase Park. There is a stone that my understanding is being donated to the town. I was involved in helping to pick it out. I've been working with this small group of volunteers, and I think it'll be a nice day. Hopefully the sun will be out, and then the mill will be open for grinding of corn and serving of cornbread, I understand. But so it's there as a nice plaque that was worked on by the group, for which Ms. Aikman, Debbie Aikman, spent a lot of time researching. Bill Cullinan, Frank Messina, and at one point Janet Whittemore was involved. So it's a nice little ceremony, and it was funded largely by, and Alex has been involved in this, Katie Donovan, Ali Sabatino, our former town planner, funded through community preservation monies that were supported by the Select Board, Finance Committee, and Town Meeting. So if anyone has time that morning, it won't take very long. I would encourage you to attend. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that.
Thank you, Dean. As a member of the SAR, I'm delighted to hear it's coming to pass.
Okay.
All right. Anything further in terms of public service announcements or otherwise? If not, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, John Paplardo,
Yes.
Tommy,
Yes.
John Whalen,
Yes.
Joanne,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes?
and the chair's in favor, 6-0. All right, everybody. Thank you very much. I'll get a note out about prospective dates next week, and we can wrap this all up. So I appreciate as ever your time and commitment. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen.
Bye.
Thanks.